All right, we don't have enough time for the full video. We got to get into it. No time. All you missed was the lock closing. All right, that's all you missed. We're back. Little Sunday sheets, or I think I titled it the Sunday Scramble today. We're just messing around with different alliteration.
I like it.
We got John. How are we doing, man?
I think we're doing good. I just saw Kareem Hunt is active, which is a bit of a bummer because I was hoping he would be out for Jerome Ford. And besides him and DK Metcalf, I think are the two big guys that we're still waiting to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, like the big news was like that Watson is going to go after some like weird Watson vibes for a while.
So weird.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. Rich Buddy, you came to the wrong show, but I love this question.
Let's talk Top Shot.
Yeah, it's not worth logging into. Here's what we're going to do. We'll go over some of John's little flow charts, maybe talk, and then we're going to dive into some Underdog stuff. They just released a $25 tournament of the, what do they call it? The fullback dive or full something. I don't know. We'll do that. We'll do some battle royales, get into the Underdog. But let's just get into it since, you know, we're on a little bit of a time crunch. Where are our decision points this week, John?
Let's start. Let me share the flow chart real quick. So we'll start on DK. We'll click around on there real quick, and then we'll pop over to Underdog. So first in cash, I think this is a pretty solid way to build out the cash lineup. You know, there's some argument to be made about Jerome Ford. I've got him here. I've got Josh Jacobs here. So between Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, Jerome Ford, that's kind of the four running backs that you have to pick three from. And then I also think the decision point between Keenan Allen and Cooper Kupp is important. So if you kind of go the Jacobs route, you can go Keenan Allen. If you go a little bit cheaper with Ford, you can go Cooper Kupp. What picks your eye there between Kupp and Keenan Allen?
I think Kupp. I mean, you know, Keenan Allen, truth or always, but dude, Kupp's upside is ridiculous and better Matt. Well, I know Pittsburgh's defense is still good, but I do not trust the Chiefs. The Chiefs Chargers game today, so I'm trying not to. If I'm choosing between the two, give me Cooper Kupp every time.
Yeah, I agree. And then got my boy Luke Musgrave here at tight end. You know, I'm never gonna give up on him until, you know, he plays a good game this year. And it could be today against the Broncos. It could be today.
If not today, when? You know what I mean? Like, it has to be today.
Yeah. And then I do think the interesting one is Wan'Dale Robinson, who's basically the same price as JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. And so, you know, there's probably some smart people saying to play Jackson Smith and Jigba in case DK gets ruled out. And then, you know, if DK's ruled in, you don't have this easy swap to Wan'Dale because he's in the early game. So then you got to kind of shuffle things around in the afternoon. And so that's kind of the real you know, decision that you're going to have to wrestle around with. What about for this final piece here, these four receivers, you'll have to kind of pick one of them. What do you think there? Lockett, Flowers, Watson, Brown?
Watson, I think. Well, we're talking cash, right? So I guess it's a little bit,
cash.
Maybe it's probably Marquise Brown, where I feel like or even Lockett too. I don't know. I'm playing Watson in almost everything. I'm the wrong person to ask about cash stuff. I hate all the cash questions because I'm just like, give me Watson because I feel like he's going to catch 3 balls for like 190 yards today.
I know.
So
I
I
know.
love Watson
Yeah.
so much.
So let's talk Watson here. This is the GPP flow chart. We're loading up heavy. Jordan Love, Christian Watson. That's going to be a staple in every lineup. And then sometimes we're going to pair it up with Musgrave. Sometimes we're just going to roll those guys out. There's also like an Aaron Jones option.
That's
here at the
okay.
end
Thank
where
you.
can
That's what I was going to say.
really
Throw Aaron
pile
Jones into
on.
that stack, baby.
Yeah.
Throw Jones in there.
Yeah. So I didn't, I mean, so there's a lot of chatter that it's better to over correlate today because the games are shittier and it's a smaller slate and stuff like that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I've heard quite a few sharp people saying that. And so but I didn't want to include Aaron Jones as like a staple in here, just as I didn't also want to include a Bronco as a necessary bring back. Because one, the Broncos suck, and two, like, I don't know, Packers could score like a bunch of points and Broncos couldn't do anything. And so I think it's a good option. I also think Marvin Mims is really fun to just kind of keep hopefully betting on. Levitan had a funny thing that he thinks Sean Payton just didn't know that he wasn't running that many routes, and so he's going to try to run about him. He's like, oh shit. He's like, looks at the score sheet. He's like, he had a pretty good game, and then he's not looking that he's only having like 8 snaps or something. So yeah, I think Mims is kind of fun, but I wouldn't necessarily force it. And I think just Love and Watson, like both those guys could combine for like 60 points today. And then I really like the Browns. You're talking about it a little bit with Watson. So like if you don't go Musgrave, go on Njoku, Amari Cooper in there, even now Jerome Ford, too. I really like that. And then the two kind of games that I'm trying to attack the most when building out on DraftKings is the Ravens Lions and the Steelers Rams. I think both those are really fun games.
Yeah, I like all of that stuff. I think the Brown stuff is gross only because we haven't seen it. Like we haven't seen it work yet.
Yeah.
But for value purposes, they're just so underpriced that it allows you to access some of the ceilings from some of those high price guys. Like if you are trying to jam in a cup or somebody like that, it makes it work a little bit. And I'm with you. I have a lot of dude. Jared Goff's been like one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. So I don't care what defense they're playing. I'm happy to fire that up every single time. Speaking of firing up, do you want to go like position by position? Or do you want to just like jump in?
Sir.
Let's do positions first. All right.
No, let's do it. Let's rip through the sheets real quick.
Yeah.
We can't talk about the sheets and not show the sheets. So
true.
Yeah, but if you want the flow charts, check it out. I just retweeted it. They're all up on Twitter. That's for DK. So now for Underdog, we'll run through this real quick. One of the things that I've started adding in here is this projected ownership column. So what I did is I used some of the previous ADP and where those guys shook out from ownership and yada yada yada, and kind of project like based on ADP, what is some of the ownership. And so you can see it's relatively like easy to figure out. So like here's a quick chart somewhere. It's probably not showing up very well because it's zoomed in, but you can see like for the first like 18 or 20 picks, it's pretty much like everybody's 100% owned. And then it starts dropping off through like the 4th and 5th round. And this is just like the ranges. It's not like the cleanest chart ever, but you can see as you kind of get to the end, really starts getting into like the 50, 25% range for some of the people with the mid to low 30 ADP. So anyways, it's just important to look at, I think, when you're thinking through things. And like, if there's a decision point between like guys that are similar, I think going to that ownership, the lower guy is pretty easy. And so I think quarterback is really deep this week. And I think you talked about that, or we were talking about that a little bit before the show. But, there's call it 3.5 studs with Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, and Herbert. Mahomes is basically not falling after the 2nd round because people are trying to pair him up with Kelsey. But then all these other guys fall to the 4th, sometimes 5th round. And so I'm really pushing quarterback this week in drafts and not really trying to take one early.
It honestly reminds me of a smaller slate. Like it reminds me of a 2-game slate, right? Where we're just like, listen, if I'm not getting the best guy at 101, I'm not drafting a quarterback until the last round. And that's kind of what I've been doing too. Because the guys with the highest upside in that Mahomes and Herbert kind of have a tough matchup. Josh Allen, I don't know if the Patriots are pushing Josh Allen today. So then it's like, I don't know. I kind of want Jared Goff or a Matt Stafford who they don't have a running back. I don't know. You keep going. Sorry, I just got
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, Stafford, I think, is really interesting because, yeah, they don't have a running back, or they do have a running back. They have four of them, but they don't know what they're doing with any of them.
Right.
And then, like, I think these guys, when you look at like the ownership for Goff, Stafford, Smith, Love, who are all coming in at like a third of what some of these other guys, I think it makes sense to kind of load up on those guys. The other nice thing about the QBs and why you can push it is like if you start with Stephon Diggs, you start with Mark Andrews, you start with Keenan Allen or Austin Eckler, you start with Amon-Ra St. Brown, you start with Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. Like there's just a ton of options early on. Like you can get multiple guys from these five quarterbacks early on in your lineups. And then it's like, well, and then you just have optionality. So you just kind of like, be like, okay, well, I have exposure to potentially two or three of these guys. So I'm just going to keep pushing it until one of them's left and then I'll take it.
Yeah, and that's
So that's
what I was telling you
kind of how
before
I'm
we
doing it.
started too, that I found myself, I was like a little bit more overweight on Herbert and Lamar than I thought. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm almost like every other draft is either going to be Stafford, Geno, Jordan Love, Deshaun Watson. I even had a
Yeah.
couple of gross, like, because I have so much Waller. I was like, fucking Tyrod Taylor a couple of times. But
I mean, it makes sense because Washington defense sucks. So I think,
yeah,
just a little Tyrod Taylor, Darren Waller, hopefully he scores like 2 touchdowns and goes off.
exactly.
That's smart. Let's go to running back because I think running back's actually pretty interesting this week because it doesn't feel very deep.
Hmm.
Um, and like at the top is kind of Eckler and Walker, and they actually project kind of quite a bit better. And then this group of like these four, you can maybe slide Aaron Jones, even though his ADP hasn't really caught up there. This four just kind of is that weird block of dudes that like nobody really wants to take, but you have to draft a ready back. Um, between Jacobs, Barkley, Bijan, and Pacheco. So I don't know, who do you prefer of those guys?
Uh, same in the sense that like I feel like I have to take them. I don't prefer them, but I have to. So I've just been trying to keep that as even as possible.
Yeah,
I've been doing Saquon first out of those guys.
yeah.
Just because I don't know, the same thing about Washington defense being terrible. I've been doing Saquon first, and then I've been trying to be even on Pacheco and Bijan.
Yeah, I'm a little bit heavier on Bijan this week. I just think one of these weeks he's going to go off, and it's like I don't want to miss it. And his
Hmm.
price kind of keeps falling. Like I don't know, he's never been a third round pick yet, and this is the first week he is. And like, I mean, he hasn't really had the greatest games, or really the greatest projection, but he never did any of the other weeks either. And so, like, the farther he keeps falling, it's just like, well, I'm just going to kind of keep betting on it because I think out of all these guys, like he's probably can have the biggest ceiling, even though we had never seen it, which is kind of like a weird thing to think through.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to miss the Bijan week because I think he's really, really a stud. And then moving into like the back half of the draft. So I've been trying to get a lot of Aaron Jones. Jahmyr Gibbs kind of caught some really late steam because, no Montgomery. Gibbs was ruled in. Craig Reynolds, I think, just was ruled in, but he was kind of questionable this week. So Gibbs caught a lot of steam. He has a pretty good projection. What do you feel about like Gibbs, Brian Robinson, Jerome Ford, Taylor, any of those guys?
Yeah, sorry too if my chin's a little been getting them. I think it's my end. I honestly, John, because we've been so higher on those other guys listed, I'm not finding
Yeah,
myself in this range too much. So
yeah,
I've taken a couple of shots on Brian Robinson, a couple of shots on Taylor. I've kind of been out on, I think I have like one or two shots on Gibbs, but that's really it. Aaron Jones to me is kind of the last guy that I've been drafting at running back, mainly because of where you land in wide receiver in that range, where it's like you
yeah,
can get the upside of dudes like Christian Watson, Mike Evans, those types of guys. I'd rather
yeah.
have like two of Eckler, Walker, Saquon, Bijan, all of those guys, especially since we're drafting quarterbacks so late. It's just really easy to do that.
Yeah. Have you been doing two running back or mostly three wide receiver?
You know me, I'm usually a big wide receiver, bro. This week I probably have more 2-2 builds than I have ever, just because just because I feel like there's a pretty big drop off in some of those running backs.
I think that could be pretty smart, because I think um, I think a lot of people are going to go 1-1-3-1 because it does feel like running back drops off. But I do think that Gibbs, I think Gibbs, Jones, Jerome Ford, and Brian Robinson, even though I don't have too much B Rob, I think that's a pretty good group. And so doing the 1-2-2-1s, I think is pretty smart. And even like pushing running back a little bit and like taking like two of those guys is really interesting. Nobody's going to be building it like that.
That's
Um,
true. Yeah, I didn't even thought about that.
Yeah, John Warner's in the chat, loving the projected ownership. What's up,
Oh, there we
John?
go.
Uh, I will say, so these are like two different numbers basically, because when a player is 100% owned, that doesn't actually mean they're 100% owned. That means they're only in 1/6 of lineups, right? So when I'm looking at like my exposures, I like to look at like this number to see like how, you know, how I am to, compared to the field. And you can see like it's pretty easy to get levered up on some of these guys, right? So like if you look at a guy like Jerome Ford, right? So right now with an ADP of 33.9, he's only projected to be in 4% of lineups, right? Like 4% of the 67,000 or whatever, right? So if you just go to like 12%, like you're great. Like
Right.
you're triple the field, like you're feeling pretty good if Jerome Ford has a good day. Whereas like if for some, I mean, the first round picks, it's hard to get over levered on because of the ADP, but like that's been one of the things that I've been trying to wrestle around with the underdog stuff, is because like it almost feels like if you're at the field, um it's just not good enough, like because you just need such the nuts combination to do well. And so like and we've struggled with this a bit, like the weeks like where Chase went off and we had a ton of Chase, and it's like we just didn't get paid off for it. And it's like, we were probably, I mean, Chase was getting drafted 17% of the time. We were probably like 25 or 30% Chase. And
Yeah.
it's like, but we still just didn't have the right combos with Chase, and it's like, damn, do we need to be like 40% a guy who's getting drafted in every draft to really get paid off, or is it just the variance and not getting there?
Yeah, I think we were probably overweight on guys that were pretty bad too, and that hurt us. I can't
Yeah.
remember if that was the Devonte Adams boner week
Yeah,
that
he's
where
been really bummed. So
he sucked.
he's gonna go
Um,
off this week too after we were heavy on his
I
last
know,
week.
and I
I
barely have any of them. I'm
me
already.
neither, dude. It's just this is literally how it works.
I know.
So sick.
I was actually I want to save it for after we talk about wide receiver because I have a question about or after we get through all this because I have a question about like approaching swaps with roster construction.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah,
yeah, I'll
for
wait
sure.
till we get to
So
finish wide receiver.
yeah, let's just fire through wide receiver here real quick. So basically, there's like the big four with Cup, Diggs, Allen, Amon-Ra. Um, I think Cup's the clear 101. He's got the safest floor. He's just been a freaking stud. He doesn't even look like he was hurt. And then from there, like you could convince me Amon-Ra is the second best wide receiver here. I've been taking a bit of him at like the 4 range
Mhm.
after like Kelsey and Kenneth Walker, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. Getting like so earlier in the week it was harder to do this, but since Kenneth Walker has steamed up a bit, getting like Keenan Allen and Amon-Ra at the turn is kind of fun. Sometimes Diggs even falls there too.
I was just gonna
Any
say,
hot takes on these four?
you know what? Well, I love what you were just saying there about when you're drafting late in the first round. And you can double click those because those running backs we were talking about, for whatever reason, people don't want to draft them. So you can like start with those two and then sometime get Bijan like on the
Yeah,
fall back or
yeah.
Pacheco or
Oh
something
yeah,
like that. And that to me is just like such a fire start. Um,
yeah.
so I like that a
Especially
lot.
because if you start Keenan Allen and Amon-Ra, then you can go Herbert or Goff, right? And
Mhm.
so then you don't feel like you need to take Herbert in the third. And so then you can, try to grab if Mark Andrews falls or if a running back falls or something like that, then you're kind of cooking there.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's good. And then there's this weird mid tier with Devontae Adams and Puka. Again, I think Adams is probably going to go up this week, but I have like 12 or 15% instead of the 35 I've been having. So that'll be fun. And then I think Puka's super slept on still. Like people just think he's not good because he dropped a touchdown last week and like, didn't have the the greatest game ever since Cup's been back. But again, like going back to that whole conversation about how they don't have any running backs and Stafford like might throw up 40 times today.
It's funny.
It's
I
just
was
gonna
pretty
go to
in.
Puka.
I watched or listened to Established a Million last night, and going into that, I was pretty underweight on Puka just because, and I was so overweight on Cup because of I was drafting him first, second, and third essentially, so I was getting him a lot, and I totally didn't even think about that. Like, hey, they're running out 2 or 3 or 5 dog shit running backs. Like maybe Stafford just drops back and chucks it 80 times. My only fear is that this game, the final score of this game, is going to be like 9-3. But I do think he's going to chuck a bunch. So I've been trying to get some more Puka as you've been getting closer.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think the next tier of guys is Watson, Cooper, and Evans. I think Cooper's a little bit snoozed on, so I think it's sharp to try to snag some of him just because the Colts secondary sucks. You're really betting on the Watson ceiling game. We haven't seen it yet this year, but I think it makes sense. And then Mike Evans is just been kind of a stud this year. So I think he's totally fine. And then it kind of gets a little bit weird and thin. And I think this is where you can really fade some of the guys that are getting drafted. And so, so Lockett has caught some steam with DK Metcalf potentially sitting here. And so, he makes a little bit more sense there. I mean, he wasn't getting drafted sometimes earlier in the week. And then he's also like pretty easy 6-round pick. So I wouldn't take him at like an ADP of 24. I think that's a little rich. But then like the group of like Zay Flowers, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Gabe Davis, like Rashi Rice, like those guys just feel super thin to me. And what's happening with like Gabe Davis and Rice, which I think it's like, and maybe even Zay Flowers a little bit. Like, yeah, I mean, these guys have a little bit of juice. They could have some big games, whatever. But specific to like their projected ownership versus their range of outcomes is like way skewed in the wrong direction. And what's happening is, people take Lamar, but they miss out on Andrews.
Yep.
Same thing with, Josh Allen, but they miss out on Diggs. They take Mahomes, they miss out on Kelsey. And so they feel like they need to get this stacking partner in. And so that's where these guys are coming in like way more owned than they should be. And so I think that's a pretty clear, like, stay away. In my opinion, I have been taking some Zay Flowers, but it's been when I've been like loading up on the Ravens Lions game.
Yeah.
But I think Davis and Rice are like just pretty like not worth clicking.
Well, that's what I was going to say about Zay Flowers. I've been trying to keep it away from Lamar pairings and only do it with Goff. Like if I have Goff and Laporta or Goff or St. Brown, then maybe I'll click Zay Flowers there at the end. Totally
I
agree
think
with
that makes a lot of sense. Anybody else you're worth shouting out with receiver that you've been targeting? Any scroll down super power guys?
No, I mean, I took like I think I have a hair of it's Stephon Diggs, Jesus Christ, George Pickens here and there.
Yeah.
But for the
Pickens.
for the most part though, I kind of haven't been, and I think it's because the way I've been different for the most part is the quarterback tight end stuff that I've been doing.
Yeah.
And I think that I've been fairly chalky in like the 2-2 build might not be super chalky, but I've been fairly chalky with not scrolling down too far.
Yeah. No, I think that's fine. And I think tight end, it's one of those weeks where, I don't know. I interested to hear your take on this because like there was a week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where Hawk was also playing, and it was Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, Laporta, Waller might have been in there too. And like at that point, it's like, okay, these are like the 5 guys who can actually score any points. And so I just don't think it's worth taking any shots on other tight ends.
Yeah.
And it's pretty similar this week with Kelsey, Andrews, Laporta, Waller, and then like, so really the only guys that I've been taking is Pitts and Musgrave, besides those 4, but I'm trying to ramp up. I have quite a bit of Laporta, and I've been trying to ramp up the Mark Andrews just because I really have turned a corner on that game, and I really like that game here late in the week. So yeah, anybody past those big guys that you've been going with, or
Right here,
not really?
baby. Michael Mayer this week. I have been hitting some
Oh
Michael
yeah,
Mayer. I've been doing that a little bit. I forget. I think it was the week we were like 50% on Devontae Adams, and Mayer had
yeah,
like 70 yards receiving in the first quarter. I was tilting so hard, and I was like, "Not on my watch, not again." So I've
yeah,
been clicking
yeah.
Michael Mayer a little bit. I also threw in some because again I have a little bit more Herbert, and Herbert was falling in a lot of drafts, and I was like, I'm not going to have him with Keenan Allen. I'm not drafting Josh Palmer. It's like, you know
Yeah.
what, Gerald Everett can fall into the end zone, and I think especially if the KC, if like Kelsey doesn't go nuts, like if those top three don't go nuts. And Gerald Everett falls in the end zone, I don't hate it. So Everett, Higbee a couple of times I've clicked. Jonnu I've actually clicked a couple of times as well. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I think so.
uh,
That's interesting how you're talking about pairing up Everett with Herbert, because I have done that a little bit too. But I would say so going back to like the discussion of how like Rice and Gabe Davis are skewed up a little bit this week because people are
Mhm,
wanting to pair them when they miss out on the studs. I think you can also, when there's a lot of good quarterbacks, I think you can run them naked too. And I don't think you
mhm.
necessarily always need to stack them if it's a little bit thinner, because you basically just have to look at the decision point of like, okay, so like let's say you missed out on Stephon Diggs, but Josh Allen fell to like the fourth round, and you're like, I can't really skip him here, right? So if you take Josh Allen in the fourth, but then you have um let's say you have Cooper Cup, right? Like, let's say you
Mhm.
have Cooper Cup and then you take Josh Allen in the fourth. Well, like, that's totally fine because Josh Allen could have a great game, Stephon Diggs could have a great game, but Cooper Cup could just simply outscore Stephon Diggs at
Right.
that same opportunity cost. And then I think you're okay. Like, the parts where you like don't want to do it is when you also like maybe you went heavy on like running back early. So then you don't have a receiver that could keep up with that quarterback's playing partner kind of
Right.
thing. And so I think it's just worth kind of checking out as you're drafting, and not always feeling the need to stack it, even though it seems weird and all the stats say that you should.
Yeah, no,
There's been a few. I mean, there's like 15% or so of the lineups that finished in the top 10 this year, because I track that, have not been stacked, which is a pretty high number.
well, and especially those top tier guys, right? Like if somebody like Lamar falls or somebody like Herbert or Mahomes or whatever, like I agree. I would much rather like if you get Mahomes and you don't stack him and it's like, ooh, do I take Mike Evans with my last pick or do I take Rashi Rice? I'm like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's I think Mike Evans probably has a better game.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
Should we
I
draft?
also
You
think
just
like
draft?
so sorry, one more thing. I also think no
Yeah, yeah,
one is playing Rice without Mahomes. No one's playing Gabe Davis without Josh Allen. So if like that's
yeah,
why you're doing it, I don't like it, you know?
yeah. Totally, totally.
Uh
You want to draft? Me draft? What do you want to do?
why don't you draft? I know we were talking about doing some of those fullback dives or whatever. So why don't we pull
Yeah.
yours up? Oh, the question I was going to ask you for like a
Oh yeah,
strategy
yeah,
swap question. So and I know I know it can't really it's not like by individual basis, but right, I have told you that I was drafting a lot of DK Metcalf earlier in the week. Now, do you think it's like smarter to prioritize getting JSN or Lockett in there, or are you like, oh, maybe like snagging a running back would be more? I mean, and again, I know it's not an individual basis, but I didn't know if you have a lean. Would you just click Lockett, JSN, and then see what happens after that?
yeah. I think it's, um, I think it's a little bit interesting, and it's somewhat dependent on the week because, so like, let's say you were hammering DK Metcalf earlier in the week,
Hmm.
and he got ruled out. Let's see, you had a bunch of them, and he got ruled out on like Wednesday, and so then by the time this morning comes around, like JSN is has an ADP of like 30, and he's getting drafted quite a bit, and he's going to be like the auto swap,
Yeah.
then I would say that you would want to maybe try to not do JSN and you try to like figure something else out. But if he's in this condition where he's like going to be ruled out super late and there's going to be only 4 games in the afternoon window or whatever, then I think it does make a little bit more sense to scoot JSN up and just hope that you do have a little bit more leverage there versus the guys who are just like swapping in automatically to like Lockett, maybe Marquise Brown, I don't know who else is in the afternoon slate. And so
Mhm.
I think you got to think about that a little bit. But then I also like sometimes, so I'm actually going to do my swap rankings right after this. So maybe we can look at how the ADP shakes out. So number
Yeah.
3 here, I've been squeaking through and just taking Kenneth Walker. I don't know if that's smart, but whatever.
Oh, I like that.
So because I think the way that I think through the swaps is like, so like I want to try to use DK Metcalf to give me as so like let's say I have, I don't know, 20 DK Metcalf lineups. I
Mhm.
want to use that swap to give me as many different outcomes of there as possible because I know I wasn't really stacking him with Geno a lot, right?
Right.
If for instance you were stacking DK a lot with Geno, then it makes sense to do more JSN, right? Because then you want to like kind of maintain that stack. But I wasn't taking a lot of Geno, and so now I just want like my DK to be like a random assortment of dudes, right? That kind of fits
Okay.
in the gap. And so in that case, I'm gonna look at that range and I'm gonna file it a little bit by ADP. That way, like I'll get maybe a Lockett every now and then. I'll get a Marquise Brown, and then I'll get kind of some of the random bros. But yeah, I think it's just very dependent on number one, the timing and like how that guy's direct replacement is ending in drafts, and then also whether you were like stacked or whatever with that player.
Yeah, because part of me was thinking too, like with DK being like a 6th round pick for the most part, that like early in those drafts, like I don't know how much DK was even drafted. And then will
Right.
JSN just be like even more unique? All right, we go Andrews here.
Yeah, I mean, wide receiver is going to be pretty ugly, but we'll figure it out. So then I'm going to try to go Lamar too, um, and then we'll figure it out at receiver later. Don't love this one. That's a problem with taking Eckler or Walker, is you pretty much have to punt at receiver, but we'll see.
Yeah. I know, because especially at 3, I don't know. I like the Walker at 4 5 almost a little bit better because you can maybe get a Monra on the 2nd round pick,
Yeah,
but drafting
yeah.
at 3, it's a little bit harder.
I mean, I think they freaking crushed it this week with these contests. Like every single one is filling like right as it closes, and they had a pretty big selection of contests too this week.
Yeah. Oh my
So
God, they
shout out
added
to
so
Hope
much
and
shit.
Numi and those guys. Yeah.
Also, I know. I mean, I
Well,
know
that
we're
was my
talking.
biggest like. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, I'm switching subjects. So you go.
No, I was just gonna say that was like my biggest feedback to those guys. In the discords and stuff was like, I think the more they get into routine, like now they're in a click of like the battle royale is the 67,000 whatever 30K up top. Like they're into that. Oh, we get Puka here.
Wow,
That's
beautiful.
we'll take that. We don't get um we don't get Lamar, but that's fine. So then we'll just queue up Stafford so we don't forget about him. And then yeah, I have these running backs ranked ahead of the wide receivers, so I think we'll just try to maybe grab another running back if they're still there. But anyway, so that was my thing that I was trying to give, feedback to Numi and Hope, who had just basically taken over like the contest procurement position or whatever. Is like just get those bigger contests out and get them like out a little bit earlier in the week and just have it get into this routine where like everybody knows like what's out there, everybody knows that there's going to play whatever. Like they can do some of the fun onesie twosie contests with like they did like an AFC only, NFC only, whatever. I didn't
Right.
really do any of those this week, but the ones that frustrate me when it's like the 2 game slate and it's like there's like Thursday, Sunday, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and it's like, all right, like just put it out a little bit earlier and like size it a little bit bigger. So it's just like 1, right? Like don't do like 4 small ones. So
Right.
I
And
think
then if it fills, you can always drop in like a mini
right.
the day of, and then it's like you have 2 instead of having 4. I agree.
I'm actually gonna go Christian Watson here.
Yes.
and then we can open up Love also as a potential QB, and then I kind of like Aaron Jones here.
I was gonna ask in these smaller ones, because this is the $25 fullback, right?
Yes.
In these smaller ones, are you more open to a little double stack?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Especially the state of this slate today, where it's like just kind of a mess. Like I'm all about it. So like, let's see. Okay, so Beefcake, it needs a QB. He's not going to take any of our guys. And these other two guys have QB. So I think I'll try to go. I think I'll just load up Jerome Ford here. And then I'll just take, who do you like over Stafford or Love? Probably Love, right?
Yeah, I think Love's not getting drafted a lot, so that's fun.
Right. Just in
'Cause
the, especially just in the small field here, just hoping for a little Love Watson Explodo.
right, because you think if you're not getting, what do we have? 6 people drafting, and you know Herbert, Lamar, Mahomes, and Allen are going in all of them, right? So then there's
Mhm.
2 of Stafford, Goff,
Yeah,
Gino,
Love
and
Watson,
Love.
maybe Gino. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that a lot. Now, do you feel like, I mean, I know not everybody's going to do this and it's a $25 5 max, but do you like, if I'm doing this, I'm maxing it, or would you ever just do like 2 of these?
Like I'm just gonna do this one. So like in these bigger ones, I like it's only four. I think there's just like a diminishing returns thing sometimes on these where it's like there's only like 450 people,
Hmm.
and like I don't know. It's just hard to like get your money back.
Yeah.
When you have if you have like 5 of them. So I like I mean I did that last week just because I was coming off the heater and I'm like, oh, I got tons of money, but I didn't really do too well. And in these, I think I like broke even in the $100 one and like totally bricked in this $25 one.
Hmm.
And so the one thing I will say though that I tried out this week, and I think is a kind of sharp way to do it is like, so obviously in the big boy, like you want to spread things out and you want to get a lot of combos if you're doing a bunch of lineups. But so they released a $3 20 max,
Yeah.
which actually was pretty fun. I think you said you missed it, right? It filled pretty quick.
Yeah, I missed that one.
But but so for that one, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try to do all 20 of these lineups like very similar. And so like I reached a bunch for Andrews in the second. I did a bunch of like Andrews and Lamar pairings, and then I tried to fit in a bunch of Packers late. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna kind of like bet on this type of lineup doing well. And like hopefully with these 20, I get the right kind of combos and it bubbles up. Of course, it could completely brick out and I'll be at the end, but I think that's like a little bit interesting way to approach like these smaller max ones is like try to make like the same exact lineup with like 1 or 2 variations.
Yes.
Um, then you could kind of maybe get paid off a little bit better because it's like realistically, if you put in 5 lineups and they're all very different, especially in a sport like NFL, like 3 of those are going to suck and like hopefully 2 of them are going to do good, and so then you're hoping your 2 do like really really good, right? And
Right.
so if you do like if you do all 5 of them the same or very similar, you know the normal outcome is like most of them sucking anyways, right? So like if they all suck, it's not a big deal, but then if they all hit, then you're like being able to get paid off a little bit better.
It was honestly, that's how I used to approach when I used to do the $3 20 max on DK for showdowns. And it's like, oh, I'm doing a 4-2 stack, I'm doing a 4-2 build, and 50% of my lineups, I'm going to have this captain, 50% the other. And then that's it. I want to be as tight of a core as possible. So that way, when it hits, it pours.
Yeah.
But yeah. Do you want to?
What are you doing on DK or FanDuel or anything?
I'm just doing a little single entry on FanDuel. That's it. I'm focusing most of my time on Underdog this week because I just have more fun with it. But this is, for sweat sakes. I got a Jordan Love double, I believe, right? Yeah, we got Jordan Love with Christian Watson and Aaron Jones. And then I actually did a bring back, and it's gross, but it's on FanDuel, so it's running back, the running back heavy. I put a little Jaleel McLaughlin in there for a little bring back because he was like dirt cheap. And then it allowed me to throw in, I got Kenneth Walker, Amon-Ra, Cooper, and then our boy Mayer as the tight end.
Oh, nice. I like
So, yeah. What about you?
I got the flow chart going about like 20 Jordan Love lineups, and then trying to figure out what I'm doing in some of the bigger contests on DK. But I think I'm gonna try to play some Lamar. I'm gonna try to play some Stafford, and then maybe just some more Jordan Love, and kind of keep it pretty simple.
I like that. Cooper's so damn expensive. Is he really? Is Mark? I did not think that he was that expensive. Maybe he's on DK. Or are you looking at FanDuel?
Maybe he's
as well?
saying Cup. He might be saying Cup.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Amari Cooper. I have Amari Cooper in there, not Cooper Cup. Yeah, we hope so, Jeb. We've drafted a lot of Christian Watson. Who exposure wise on FanDuel? Who are your most where are you way overexposed on?
Or on Underdog?
Yeah.
I think I was just trying to actually update it, but let's see. I am heaviest. Let's see. Quarterback Stafford and Goff. Running back, I actually have Bijan and Aaron Jones as the two lead dogs there. Wide receiver, I got Puka, Amon-Ra, and Cup. Somehow
Nice.
finished with 23% Cup. We'll take that.
Yeah, that's great.
And then tight end, Laporta and Andrews.
Solid.
I was hitting Laporta a lot earlier in the week because I was like, it doesn't really make sense that he like keeps falling like way past Andrews, and then apparently like freaking Ravens are like the best defense against tight end or something. So whatever.
There you go. That is why.
Do that well.
Yeah, I got for quarterback was like Herbert, Lamar, Stafford. Those were like my three highest owns, and then Goff right behind them. And then at running back, dude, just way too much Saquon. 37% Saquon today. 30% Bijan. 30% Jacobs.
I got 34 Bijan. I got 34.
There we go.
Bijan,
yeah,
so.
But that's what I was saying. Like that's why I ended up doing so many 2 running backs because I was so heavy on those 3 dudes. And then I was lucky too with Cooper Kupp of 25% Cooper Kupp. And then I got a lot of Keenan Allen and 25% Christian Watson. We've got a lot of Rams, dude. We got a lot of Cooper Kupp.
I know.
24% Puka. And then tight end, I ended up with 20% Kelsey. So I must have been drafting out of like the 1 or 2 hole so much, but a lot of Waller. And then your boy
that's
Mustard.
crazy that you have that much Cup and Kelsey.
Yeah. I don't really know how that happened.
Great work.
Thanks, man. I'll let the team know. Anything else we need to hit before we wrap up here?
I don't think so. I think it's actually going to be a pretty fun week. I think, again, if you're doing last minute building stuff, check out the flow chart. And if anything, just try to condense your lineups a little bit and just bet on a game or 2 shooting out, because I think that's the way to win it this week. And you can't just bet on the Dolphins. You can't just take the easy button and go Dolphins this week.
I know. And I know they're not projected to be like highly owned, but this is more like DK and FanDuel, but I swear to God, people are going to be way more excited to click Chiefs and Chargers than they are Seahawks and Cardinals and stuff. So I'm hoping that it does feel like there's a potential for some cash this week. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say about Underdog, the double dribble now is like up over 80% filled, which is pretty exciting because it was looking a little hairy there for a little bit, and that's jumped up like 20% in 72 hours. So I imagine that gets filled up by Tuesday. So if you haven't done it yet, get that in there. I think I'm now at 135 of those, which is just
baby.
What are we doing?
That's great.
135. So we'll be back. The NBA bid will be Monday. And then Tuesday we have the marathon show. So get excited for the marathon show. We'll see you at noon to 8 p.m.
Kickoff, baby.
Yeah, let's do it. And then
tip off.
And then that means, John, the NBA dailies are back.
We're back, baby.
You know, we might enjoy building football lineups, but we cash way more in basketball lineups.
It's less fun to draft for NBA, but it's a lot more.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, the hoops guy, dude. John, that's why I have to win something in fucking football so I can stop being hoops guy. All right, everybody. Best of luck today. Hope you guys crush. John. Oh, we haven't done. It's because we weren't here last week because we were both not feeling well.
Yeah.
Dude, we forgot the victory lap.
That's right. The Bink Boys. We're sometimes known as the Bink Boys around here.
The Bink Boys, the best part about it was that you won a 4 p.m. only slate, right?
No, I won the mini. I won the mini
Oh, it's the
battle
mini. That's
royale.
right. That's right.
In week 5, but it was, nobody's gonna talk about the asterisk because it's not in the scorecard. But it was like a 4,500 person contest that only filled like 60%. But hey,
Hey,
a
win's a
win's a
win.
win, baby.
I
Right?
was
A
thinking it
win's
was
a
the
win.
4 p.m. and then I won the FanDuel showdown, and I liked the idea that I tweeted out like, "Come tune into the show for that alpha," and like we didn't talk about either of those specific
Yeah,
contests,
yeah, yeah,
but we did do
yeah.
1 p.m.
I
We
know,
did do 1
I know.
p.m.
I know.
But
Hey,
yeah,
but it's a lot different than last year where we were doing the show and like every week we just didn't cash the lineup we made together. So we got that week 5. We both hit a bink. We both grabbed a couple grand, and
yeah,
now we're just kind of cruising. Now we've got that
yeah.
clout capital behind us.
Now I'm entering the $25 contest. All right, guys. Good luck this week. We'll hit you up next week, and yeah, Bink boys for life. All right, we're out.